You guys, Erin Wade, your Western astrologer here. I am dropping in to give you the astrological update for the first half of February 2024. I'll start out by saying that we are experiencing some very powerful energies. Okay. First thing I want to talk about is the sign of Aquarius, because that is the zodiac sign that will be receiving definitely the most amount of energy throughout this first half of February. So, and happy solar return season to all of you Aquarius is out there, as the sun is currently transiting through this sign of Aquarius. Okay, so what does that mean? The sun is beaming his bright light, activating this zodiac sign. So this sign is what we call the fixed air sign. Now, when I say fixed, what I'm talking about is an ability to get into a rhythm and stick with it, be consistent and be persistent. Okay, but it's in the element of air, which is very strongly associated with intellect. In fact, the sign of Aquarius is considered the genius of the zodiac. This is the sign that's very strongly associated with things like inventions and science and technology. Okay, and part of that comes from the fact that Uranus is one of Aquarius's rulers. Uranus influences, like his job is to influence things that are revolutionary changes. In fact, Uranus rules specifically over things like technology and electricity. Okay, that's what makes this sign of Aquarius kind of hyper intellectual, very progressive, moving forward. Think about what's the next way out with the old ways of doing things. What's the new way to do this? That's very Aquarius energy. Okay, now it's also ruled by Saturn, which Saturn, I think, is in part what makes it this energy of being consistent and being persistent, and can be, Aquarius people can be hard workers, especially if it's involved in something that they really enjoy, which could be anything that has to do with humanitarianism, by the way. This is the sign of humanitarianism. In fact, it is represented by the water bearer. And because of that, a lot of people think that the sign of Aquarius is a water sign, but it's not. It is an air sign. But what the water bearer's job is, has a very important job. In fact, in astrology, water is considered very strongly associated with emotions. Okay, all the water signs, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, those are the three zodiac signs, and they're water signs, and they're considered to be the most emotional signs of the zodiac. Now, does that mean that just because you're not a Pisces or a Cancer or a Scorpio that you're not emotional? Of course not, because there's so much more to the natal chart. But what the water bearer does is he's basically got the water and he detaches the emotions from the water and turns that water into pure information, and then pours the water out. Water is always going to distribute evenly for all of humanity. Okay, distributes that water as information for all of us, for all of humanity. That's in part why it's the sign of humanitarianism. But it's also, again, that sign of information, pouring that information out. You may have heard we are in the age of Aquarius. This is in part why we are being sort of flooded with information, especially through things like technology and electricity. Okay, so with that said, we're all experiencing this Aquarius energy. Think about this: humanitarianism, inventions, technology, friendliness. This is a sign that's the greatest quality about the sign of Aquarius is its friendliness. This is a sign that tends to do really well in working with groups of people. It's also, interestingly, the sign of being unique, being your own unique individual person. It's like people who can work in large groups of people, even though every single person in that group is incredibly unique from each other. And I always giggle about this. Every time I think about the sign of Aquarius, it comes to my mind because it's just so true. You could have a room full of 10,000 Pisces in a room and see the similarities between them. You could have a room of 10,000, whatever zodiac signs, Leo, Virgo, Taurus, whatever it is. You could have a room full of all those Taurus people and see the similarities between all the zodiac signs, except for Aquarius. You have a room full of 10,000 Aquariuses, everybody's going to be different. Okay, it's a sign of individualism, but also doing things in groups. Okay, so we're all receiving the sun's energy going through this zodiac sign. But what's really going on here as well, I should say, is that Pluto, in case you haven't heard, Pluto has just moved into the sign of Aquarius. Now, this is a very big deal because Pluto He doesn't change zodiac signs very often. Sometimes he could take up to 30 years to change a zodiac sign. Pluto's been going through the sign of Capricorn since 2008 and finally has moved into the sign of Aquarius. And to be clear, he's only going to be in the sign, Pluto will only be in the sign of Aquarius for a few months, that he's going to retrograde back into Capricorn briefly. And then later, towards the end of this year, Pluto will finally be completely out of that sign of Capricorn and being in this sign of Aquarius for the next 20 years. Pluto will be in Aquarius for 20 years, till 2044. Okay, so Pluto, what his job is he's the bringer of very powerful transformation. In fact, Pluto is sometimes called the planet of power, and also sometimes called the planet of extremes, because that's what Pluto's job is. He brings in the extremely powerful transformational processes. So I say with confidence, over these next 20 years, while Pluto's transiting through that sign of Aquarius, we will experience some incredibly powerful changes that have to do with our technology, humanitarianism. This could even involve things like transhumanism, connecting with the AI as human and that sort of thing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's exactly how this unfolds over the next 20 years. Now, as a collective, we're all receiving this, but it's also important. As I'm going through all this information, it's so important to understand that we experience this as individuals as well. Of course, we experience it as a collective, but it's also incredibly unique to each and every one of us. It is so massively beneficial to get somewhat familiar with your natal chart so you can see where 0 degrees Aquarius lands in your natal chart. That's where Pluto is, at 0 degrees Aquarius. Anything that is at 0 degrees, it is working with its most purest, powerful form of that particular zodiac sign. Okay, so Pluto is just working with extreme force at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, what's going to happen here on February 5th, Mercury will catch up to Pluto. Now, that's called a conjunction. When any two celestial bodies, planets, whatever they are in the same spot, when they're in the same degree, in the same sign of the zodiac, it's called a conjunction. And what they do is they end up blending together and wanting to work as one energy rather than two separate. Okay, so Mercury is basically the ruler of our mind, okay, our conscious awareness and our mental function, and also has a very big influence on our communication skills. So on February 5th, when Mercury catches up to Pluto and is at 0 degrees Aquarius as well, we've got the bringer of powerful transformation and extremes blending in with the ruler of our mind and our communication skills. So for some people, especially if you've got anything near 0 degrees Aquarius in your natal chart, this could be a whole, like almost psychosis sort of breakdown, especially if you got Mercury at 0 degrees Aquarius in your natal chart. Okay, so there's that. Now, moving forward, right around Valentine's Day, let's start with talking about February 13th. Mars catches up to Pluto and will also be at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, to be clear, Mercury will have moved on. Mercury will no longer be at 0 degrees Aquarius, but Mars is the bringer of aggression and dominance. Mars is a very masculine energy, okay? Mars rules things like the engines in a car. Mars rules our adrenal glands and our muscles. Okay, so we've got the influencer of our muscles and our masculinity. We all have feminine and masculine sides to us. Everybody does. And here we have Mars, the bringer of the influencer of things that are aggressive, catching up to the bringer of extremes and transformation. Okay, so this is real. And not only that, but Mars also has a very big influence on our sex drive. So Mars catching up to Pluto, that's a very, very powerful transit at 0 degrees Aquarius. Now, moving forward, so that's the day before Valentine's Day, the day, 2 days after Valentine's Day on February 16th, then Venus catches up to Pluto. Okay, so Venus, she's the influencer of love and beauty and harmony, all things that are aesthetically pleasing. Even Venus even rules over things like beautiful music. Okay, so Venus, 2 days after Valentine's Day, catches up to Pluto. So we've got, I mean, this is extremely powerful energy. Again, especially if you have something in your natal chart near 0 degrees Aquarius. You could almost kind of think of that particular thing, whatever it is in your natal chart, as almost being triggered. It's being tackled. It's being almost so what I'm looking for here, it's almost being aggressively attacked. Okay, so there's that. Again, especially mostly I'd say the biggest attack would probably be on February 13th. Okay, so that's a date to look for, especially if you've got, again, if you pull out your natal chart, look to see what you have at the 0 degree Aquarius point. Not only that, but if you don't have anything there, it still has to be somewhere in your natal chart. We all have the sign of Aquarius somewhere in our natal chart. It might be coming through your house of career, or your house of money, or your house of physical health, or your house of karma, or your house of communication. There's all these different areas of your life that this could be coming through. It's got to be coming through somewhere. And once we get familiar with our natal chart, then we can see specifically what area of our life it is specifically manifesting for you. Okay, so how do we do that? You get an astrology reading. If you ever get an astrology reading with me, you understand that I offer you a free video recording. So with that, you can always go back. We go through, as long as you get at least a 1-hour session, we go through all the houses in your natal chart so that you can always go back to that recording and see which area of your life is being activated by anything astrological, whether it's being the sign of Taurus or Virgo or Capricorn or Pisces or whatever it is. Okay, so there's that. Now, if you would like to schedule a reading with me, you can schedule through the East West website, which is eastwestbooks.org. When you go to that website, you'll look on top and there'll be a link that says Readers and Healers. When you click there, it's very self-explanatory, very user-friendly site. You can see how to schedule a reading with myself or any of the wonderful readers and healers that East West has to offer. Okay, so I do hope to hear from some of you. And until next time, namaste to all of you.